There is a country whose greatest export is not a product. It is not technology, not dairy, not the whiskey that bears its name on bar shelves in 60 countries. Its greatest export, across centuries and continents, and the slow accumulation of catastrophe, has been its own people. And here is the thing nobody tells you about Ireland before you arrive. Before the green hits you, before the stone walls unravel across the hillside, like handwriting you can't quite read, before the first pint is pulled, and the first fiddle note cuts through a pub thick with rain-soaked coats and firelight. Here is the thing that reframes everything. There are more people of Irish descent living outside Ireland than inside it. 70 million people around the world claim Irish ancestry. 70 million. The entire population of the island, the Republic and Northern Ireland combined, sits at just under 7 million. Which means that for every Irish person standing on Irish soil right now, there are 10 more scattered across Boston and Buenos Aires and Sydney and Johannesburg, carrying something they were never quite able to put down. A name, a temperament, a particular relationship with rain and loss and laughter that they can't entirely explain to people who don't share it. This is not a footnote to Ireland's story. It is the story. To understand life on this island, the texture of it, the weight of it, the specific quality of silence you find in a Connemara bog on a Tuesday morning, you first have to understand what it means to be a country that has spent centuries watching itself leave. A country that has survived famine, occupation, emigration, and the grinding indignity of being told, again and again, that its language, its culture, and its people were expendable, and has answered every single one of those verdicts with the same quiet, immovable refusal to disappear. Ireland didn't just survive history, it absorbed it. Carried it forward in songs, in stories, in the particular Irish habit of treating a stranger like someone you've simply not met yet. And it built, from all of that accumulated grief and resilience and dark humor, one of the most distinctive and genuinely magnetic cultures on Earth. So let's land. Let's come in low over the Atlantic on a gray morning, which is most mornings, and watch the island materialize out of the mist. From above, Ireland resolves itself in layers. First, there is water. Everywhere, water. The Atlantic pressing in from the west with the patient force of something that has been doing this for longer than anyone has been watching. Then land, but not the hard-edged, sun-dried land of a Mediterranean coast. This land is soft, it yields, it glows, even under cloud cover, with a green so saturated it looks almost artificially enhanced. Like someone has turned up the saturation dial on the entire country and walked away. 40 shades of green. The phrase exists because someone ran out of other words. In certain lights, in certain seasons, on certain hillsides after 3 days of rain, the island looks less like a physical place and more like an idea of a place. An idea of somewhere that is irreducibly, defiantly alive. The first thing you notice on descent is the geometry. Ireland is a country of fields, and the fields are small. Smaller than you expect. Divided by an extraordinary network of stone walls, dry stone walls, built without mortar, stacked by hand over generations, that carve the landscape into a mosaic of greens and grays. These walls are not decorative. They were necessity first, but they became something else over time. They became a record. Every wall represents human effort on a staggering scale. Stones cleared from fields to make farming possible. Stones carried and stacked by people who did not know they were building monuments. That the walls have outlasted the people who built them, many of whom left or were taken, gives the landscape an elegiac quality that no amount of tourist photography quite captures. The coastline arrives next, and here the softness ends. Ireland's eastern coast is relatively sheltered. Gentle inlets, sandy beaches, harbors that look like they belong on a calendar. But swing west, and the Atlantic tears the illusion apart. The cliffs of Moher rise 214 meters straight out of the sea. The Dingle Peninsula's spine of mountains drops into water that looks cold enough to stop your heart in 30 seconds. The Aran Islands sit at the mouth of Galway Bay like a dare, 3 flat limestone tablets that face the full fury of the Atlantic with nothing between them and North America but open water and wind. This is the other Ireland, the one that doesn't apologize. And somewhere between those two coastlines, between the gentle east and the savage west, is where Irish life happens. Quietly, deeply, with a rhythm that is not slow so much as intentional. A pace that was shaped over centuries by a very specific set of understandings. That the weather cannot be controlled, that community is not optional, and that a cup of tea, offered at the right moment, is one of the most genuinely civilizing gestures one human being can make to another. There are 5.1 million people living in the Republic of Ireland. Another 1.9 million in Northern Ireland. These are not large numbers. Ireland is, by any objective measure, a small country. But the cultural gravity it generates is wildly disproportionate to its size. Irish writers have won more Nobel Prizes in literature per capita than any other nation. The Irish language, despite being spoken as a daily tongue by fewer than 2% of the population, is one of the oldest written vernacular languages in Europe. Its manuscripts some of the earliest records of any living Western tongue. Irish music has colonized the folk traditions of North America, Australia, and mainland Europe. Irish pubs exist in cities on every inhabited continent, and not merely as tourist props, as genuine social infrastructure, imported wholesale because the concept works. What is it about this small, rain-drenched island that travels so well? Walk into any village in County Clare on a Thursday night. Watch what happens when a musician sets down a pint, picks up a fiddle, and begins. Watch how quickly others appear, from corners, from bar stools, from the cold street outside. Watch the room reorganize itself around the music, not politely, not as an audience, but as participants, as co-conspirators in something that doesn't require a stage or a ticket or a name on a poster. Watch a conversation between a 70-year-old farmer and a 23-year-old architecture student from Dublin find its footing within 2 minutes, because they both know the same songs, the same stories, the same shorthand of a shared culture. That is the thing nobody tells you about Ireland before you arrive. It is not a country with a strong sense of community. It is a country where community is the operating system. Everything else, the economy, the religion, the politics, the history, runs on top of it. Strip everything else away, and what remains is the same thing that was there 1,000 years ago. People, stories, music, and a relationship with a particular piece of land that is less like ownership and more like parentage. Ireland did not give its people its landscape as a backdrop. It gave them its landscape as an identity. And that, more than the shamrocks, more than the mythology, more than the 30 million Americans who claim Irish roots, is what you feel the moment you step off the plane at Shannon or Dublin or Knock, and the damp Atlantic air moves across your face, and the green closes in around you, and something in your nervous system, for reasons you may not be able to name, says, "Oh, here, this is the beginning of Ireland's story." And we are only just arriving. Most people assume that daily life in Ireland moves slowly because the country is rural. That's not quite right. Irish life moves at the pace it does because somewhere deep in the cultural wiring, there is a shared agreement that speed is not the same as progress. That the transaction is never just the transaction. That when you walk into a butcher's shop on a Tuesday morning for a half kilo of sausages, you are not completing an errand. You are participating in a social ritual that has been running in this town, in this shop, with this family behind the counter, for longer than most cities in the world have existed. The morning in rural Ireland begins before you're ready for it. Farmers rise before light, not because anyone told them to, but because the land operates on its own schedule and the animals do not negotiate. By the time the first gray seam of dawn splits the eastern sky, there are already men and women in waterproofs, moving across wet grass, checking gates, reading the sky with the casual fluency of people who learned it from their parents, who learned it from theirs. The weather here is not a topic of small talk. It is a primary source of information, a language in itself. The particular shade of cloud building over the western hills, the direction of the wind, the way the light sits on the sea. These are practical data points in a daily calculation that has nothing to do with a smartphone app. Here is something that will surprise you if you grew up in a city. In a small Irish town, the morning walk to the local shop is not an inconvenience. It is the social architecture of the entire day. The shop, and in most villages, there is still one, sometimes doubling as a post office, a pharmacy, a deli counter, and an unofficial town hall, is where the day gets its bearings. You walk in, you are greeted by name, not with the practiced warmth of a corporate retail script, but with the specific, slightly interrogative warmth of someone who knew your mother before she was your mother, who saw you fall off a bicycle on the main street when you were 7, and who has strong opinions about how you've been looking lately. When did you last have a proper meal? You're very thin. This is not rudeness. This is love expressed through observation, which is one of the primary Irish love languages. The exchange at the counter, which will take 3 times longer than it needs to, because that is the point, might touch on the weather, always, the performance of the local GAA team, passionately, the ongoing saga of the road resurfacing works that have been disrupting traffic since February, with mounting frustration, and a brief but detailed update on Mrs. Mulligan's hip surgery, with genuine concern. Information moves through these morning exchanges at extraordinary speed. By 10 o'clock, a village of 800 people has a working shared knowledge base that would embarrass most newsrooms. This is something worth pausing on because it speaks to something the modern world has largely lost and is only now beginning to understand it lost. Drop a comment below. Does your community still have a place like this? A local shop, a corner cafe, anywhere where people actually know your name? I want to know if this still exists where you are. In the cities, Dublin, Cork, Galway, Limerick, the morning rhythm is different but not entirely unrecognizable. Dublin is a proper European capital now. Commuters with noise-canceling headphones, flat whites in paper cups, the algorithmic urgency of someone already running 3 minutes late to a meeting in a glass office tower in the Docklands. The tech industry has given Dublin a particular kind of energy, young, international, ambitious, caffeinated, and the city wears it well, mostly. But here is what Dublin has never managed to fully shed, despite everything, its neighborhood identity. Ask someone in Dublin where they're from, and they won't say Dublin. They'll say Ranelagh, or Clontarf, or Drimnagh, or Ballymun, with a specificity and a loyalty that tells you the city is not really one place, but a loose federation of villages that were absorbed, one by one, into something larger, and never entirely forgot what they were before. Dubliners carry their postcode like a personality trait. It tells you something about their schools, their upbringing, their accent, and which football club they'll quietly judge you for supporting. The pace of the midday in the countryside is governed by something that no productivity app has ever successfully replicated: lunch, properly done, in someone's kitchen. Not a desk lunch, not a sad rectangle of plastic-wrapped sandwich, consumed in 20 minutes while scrolling. A real lunch, at a real table, often still warm from a morning fire, with a pot of tea that has been stewing since 10 and is now strong enough to stand a spoon in. This is the Irish midday checkpoint. The moment where the work stops, the news is discussed, and the business of being a family happens in the middle of the day, rather than being pushed to the margins of it. This might sound ordinary. It is not ordinary. In a world that has decided the elimination of all pause is a form of ambition, the Irish midday table is quietly radical. The afternoon in rural Ireland has a particular quality of light and industry. The fields get their attention. The trades go about their business. School children spill out of gates. In the mid-afternoon, their noise filling the main street briefly, before dispersing in every direction. There is an unhurried competence to the way the day gets its work done. Not lazily, but without the kind of performative busyness that mistakes motion for meaning. Nobody here is optimizing their workflow. They're just doing the work. Think about your own daily routine for a moment. When did you last have a real, unhurried meal with someone you love in the middle of the day? If Ireland makes you want to slow down, let me know in the comments. What strikes visitors most consistently is not the landscape or the history or even the pubs. It is this, the feeling that people here are actually present. That when someone is talking to you, they are talking to you. Not composing their response, not scanning the room, not managing 7 parallel digital conversations. The conversation you are in is the one that is happening. This is rarer than it should be. And it is, perhaps more than any castle or coastline, the thing that makes people book a return flight before they've finished their first visit. There is a word in Irish that has no precise English equivalent. Mithial. It describes the old practice of neighbors coming together, unasked, unprompted, simply because the need existed to help with a harvest, raise a roof, clear a field. You did not wait for an invitation. You showed up because someone needed the work done, and you had hands. It was not charity. It was not obligation. It was something more fundamental than either. The understanding that the line between your well-being and your neighbor's well-being was not a line at all. Most countries have some version of this idea in their distant past. Ireland still practices it, not always with hay bales and strong backs, though that too in farming communities, but in the modern currency of the same impulse. The neighbor who appears at your door the morning after a bereavement, without calling ahead, carrying food. The community fundraiser that fills its target in 48 hours, because every parent at the school knows the family, and nobody needed to be asked twice. The WhatsApp group that organized itself, seemingly spontaneously, to drive an elderly widow to her hospital appointments every second Thursday. This is the invisible infrastructure of Irish life. It doesn't appear in economic statistics. It doesn't photograph well, but it is load-bearing. The family in Ireland is not a unit. It is a structure, not the neat nuclear arrangement of 2 adults and 2.4 children that post-war Western culture decided was the natural shape of things, but something older, messier, and considerably more robust. Irish family networks extend outward in all directions. Parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and a quantity of cousins that defies easy accounting. In many rural communities, Multiple generations live not just in the same village, but on the same road. Sometimes in houses that were built, extended, subdivided, and inherited with the relaxed inevitability of a hedge growing over a wall. This proximity is not always frictionless. Irish family life has its politics, its silences, its decades-long disagreements over land or money or the choice of a spouse. It would be dishonest to romanticize it into something perfectly warm and uncomplicated. But the complexity is the point. These are not relationships of convenience. They are relationships of commitment, maintained across years and difficult conversations and the accumulated weight of shared history. Because the alternative, the atomized isolation of a life lived entirely alone, is understood at a cultural level to be a kind of poverty that no amount of money can fix. Children grow up inside this network with something that is increasingly rare in the modern world: a settled sense of who they are and where they come from. Think about your own family. How many generations live close to each other? Is that something you value or something you've moved away from? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. The kettle in an Irish home is never cold. This is not a metaphor, though it functions as one. It is a literal fact of domestic life that carries enormous social meaning. To arrive at someone's house in Ireland, expected or unexpected, friend or stranger, is to be met almost before you've cleared the doorstep, with the question that functions as the Irish version of hello. Will you have a cup of tea? The correct answer, even if you don't drink tea, even if you just had tea, even if you are running late and have nowhere to sit, is yes. Because the tea is not really about the tea. The tea is the formalization of welcome. It is the physical gesture that says, your presence here is not an interruption. You are wanted. Sit down. Sayad mil failte. 100,000 welcomes. The phrase is printed on tea towels and embroidered on pub signs and stitched into souvenir cushions. But before it was a marketing slogan, it was a genuine description of a cultural value. Ireland is a country whose people were, for centuries, impoverished in almost every material sense. What they had in abundance was hospitality. And an abundance of what you have in Ireland is always shared. Then there is the pub. Before you picture a tourist trap full of Guinness merchandise and a fiddle player positioned for photographs, set that image aside. What I'm describing is the other pub. The one with no sign outside, worth photographing. The one where the bar is worn smooth by 60 years of elbows. The one where the same 4 men have been sitting in the same seats on Wednesday nights since approximately 1987 and would like you to know that their stool is, in fact, their stool. The Irish pub, in its truest form, is not a drinking establishment. It is a community institution that happens to serve alcohol. It is where christenings spill from the church into the lounge. where wakes are held, and Irish wakes are something you need to experience to understand. Celebrations of a life, loud and full of laughter and stories, with the deceased present, because the community insists on saying goodbye properly. Where the post-match analysis of a county hurling semifinal reaches a pitch of intensity that makes parliamentary debate look restrained. Where a 20-year-old asking a 75-year-old to explain a song he's never heard before results in an hour-long conversation that both of them will remember for the rest of their lives. The pub is where the social threads of a community are maintained and repaired. Where people who disagree about politics and land, and who owes whom what share a table because the alternative, not sharing a table, is simply not an available option in a village of 400 people. There is no English word for the specific quality of ease that settles over a good Irish pub on a Friday night. The Irish call it craic, a word that technically translates to fun or good times, but means something more textured than either. Craic is the atmosphere that happens when the right people are in the right room with no agenda and nowhere else to be. It cannot be manufactured. It can only be created by the conditions that Irish community life, almost uniquely, still reliably produces. Have you ever experienced real craic in an Irish pub, or anywhere else in the world that gave you that same feeling of complete belonging? Tell me in the comments. And if you're watching this alone, that counts as craic too. Here is the thing about Irish community that surprises people most. It is not sentimental about itself. The Irish are not prone to misty-eyed declarations of love for their neighbors. They express care through action, through humor, through a particular kind of loyalty that shows up without fanfare and stays without expectation of recognition. The man who quietly fixes his elderly neighbor's fence on a Saturday morning doesn't post about it. The woman who has been bringing meals to a sick friend every Tuesday for 3 months waves off the gratitude with a dismissive hand and a sure, it's nothing. It is not nothing. It is the entire foundation. And it is why, when people who left Ireland are asked what they miss most, more than the landscape, more than the food, more than the particular quality of light on a gray afternoon, they almost always give the same answer: the people, just the people. Here is a paradox that sits at the very heart of Irish identity, and almost nobody talks about it openly. Ireland has a national language. It is one of the oldest written languages in Europe, with manuscripts predating the Norman conquest, predating the Magna Carta, predating almost every document that Anglo-American civilization considers foundational. It is a language of extraordinary complexity and beauty, capable of describing the specific quality of grief you feel for a place, the precise emotional texture of a landscape, the exact weight of longing carried across generations. And the vast majority of Irish people cannot speak it fluently. Gaelge, Irish, is taught in every school in the Republic from the age of 4 through to the end of secondary education. 12 years of compulsory instruction, and yet walk into any street in Dublin or Cork, and ask someone to hold a conversation in their national language. And most will smile with a mixture of guilt, affection, and something close to embarrassment. They know words, they know phrases, they know the songs, but the daily tongue was taken from them, gradually, systematically, across centuries of colonial pressure. And what remains is both a wound and a source of fierce protective pride. This is not a country that has forgotten its language. It is a country that is still, slowly, painfully, defiantly trying to remember it. The Gaeltacht regions, pockets of the western seaboard where Irish is still the language of the home, the shop, the pub, the argument, are among the most quietly extraordinary places in Europe. Connemara, Donegal, the Dingle Peninsula, the Aran Islands, these are not linguistic museums. They are living communities where children grow up dreaming in a language that has been spoken on this land for over 1,000 years, where the evening news airs in Irish, where road signs carry no English translation because none is needed. To hear Irish spoken naturally, not performed for tourists, not recited in a classroom, but flowing between two people arguing about football, is to experience something that stops you completely. It sounds ancient and urgent at the same time. It sounds like the landscape it came from. Hard consonants like stone, vowels that open like Atlantic sky. Every summer, thousands of teenagers from across Ireland travel to Gaeltacht communities for Collaistí Samhaith, Irish language summer colleges. For 3 weeks, English is forbidden. What begins as a cultural obligation, a box to tick for university entrance points, almost always becomes something else entirely. Something revelatory, a sudden, disorienting recognition that this language is not foreign. That it fits. That speaking it changes not just what you say, but how you think, how you perceive, how you locate yourself in relation to the land and the people around you. Some of them come home different. If you speak more than one language, tell me in the comments. Does thinking in a different language actually change how you see things? I genuinely want to know, but if the language is the vessel, the music is the water that fills it. Irish traditional music, trad, as it is known without ceremony, is one of the great musical traditions of the world. Not great in the way of concert halls and standing ovations and critics with long sentences. Great in the older, deeper sense. A living, breathing, communally maintained body of sound that has survived wars and famines and diaspora and the full cultural steamroller of the 20th century, and has emerged not diminished but vital, still evolving, still capable of stopping a room cold. The Season, the traditional music session, is its natural habitat. There is no stage. There is no barrier between performer and audience, because those categories don't fully apply. Musicians gather in a corner of a pub, around a kitchen table, in the back room of a festival, and begin to play. One tune leads into another by a logic that is partly agreed, partly intuited, partly the accumulated memory of decades of playing together. Fiddles, uilleann pipes, flutes, bouzoukis, bodhran. The music rises and builds and turns back on itself, and those who know it, and many who don't, find themselves drawn in, leaning forward, tapping a foot, pulled towards something they can feel in their sternum before they can name it. Nobody is performing. The music is the event. The communal act of making it, of maintaining it, of passing it forward. That is the entire point. If you've ever been in a room where live traditional music was playing and felt something shift in your chest, something you couldn't explain, like the music already knew you, tell me that story below. Those are my favorite comments to read. What the music carries underneath the technical brilliance is the weight of Ireland's history. The ballads, love songs, rebel songs, immigration songs, the songs that fishermen sang coming home in the dark, are not entertainment. They are records. Before Ireland had a widespread literary culture, before mass printing, before archives and universities, the songs were the archive. They held the names of battles, the geography of home, the names of the dead. They were how a people transmitted itself across time. This is why an Irish person can be sitting in a bar in Melbourne or Chicago or Dusseldorf, 40 years from home, and hear 4 bars of a particular song and be transported. Not nostalgically, in the soft focus way of someone looking at old photographs, but viscerally, physically, with the specific grief of someone who left something irreplaceable behind and has never stopped carrying it. The music is the umbilical cord. It is the thing that keeps the diaspora, those 70 million people scattered across the world, connected to an island most of them have never seen. Ireland is also, incontrovertibly, a nation of storytellers. This is not charming folklore. It is a verifiable cultural phenomenon. The country has produced per capita a disproportionate number of the world's most significant writers. Swift, Wilde, Shaw, Yeats, Joyce, Beckett, Heaney. That is 4 Nobel laureates in literature, and several more whose work reshaped Western thought. From a country whose population, for much of this period, was smaller than that of London alone. Why the oral tradition? Centuries of it. In a culture where language was both suppressed and sacred, where the story told around a fire was simultaneously entertainment, history, and resistance, the act of narration became elevated to something close to a moral practice. A story well told was a gift. A story poorly told was a kind of negligence. The Irish word Cian Shea, a traditional storyteller, a keeper of local history and legend, was a figure of genuine social importance. The Cian Shea was not an entertainer. They were a living library. The skills they embodied, the command of cadence, the instinct for the dramatic pause, the ability to hold an audience through the slow architecture of a story, rather than the cheap acceleration of a plot twist. These are the same skills that appear, centuries later, in Beckett's pauses and Heaney's silences, and the wry, perfectly timed wit of contemporary Irish comedy. The gift for language in Ireland is not genetic. It is environmental. It is what happens when a culture decides, over centuries, that the right words in the right order, are among the most valuable things one person can give to another. If this video is making you want to visit Ireland just to sit in a pub and listen, like, and share it so other people find it, it deserves to be seen. Tradition in Ireland is not preserved in amber. It is not a museum exhibit or a heritage performance laid on for visitors. It is Tuesday night. It is the fiddle coming out from behind the bar. It is the old man in the corner who learned that song from his father, who learned it from his. It is the 20-year-old who downloaded an app to learn the whistle during lockdown and now plays sessions every weekend because something in the music answered a question she didn't know she was asking. The tradition is alive because the people who carry it have never treated it as optional. In a world where culture is increasingly manufactured, streamed, and passively consumed, that is not a small thing. That is everything. Nobody warns you about what happens the first time you stand on Ireland's west coast in a full Atlantic storm. Not a gentle rain, which is its own experience, intimate and soft and almost apologetic. A real storm, the kind that comes in off open ocean without anything between it and you but 3,000 miles of uninterrupted water. The kind where the wind hits with physical force, where the spray from the waves reaches 100 feet into the air, and the sound is so total, so encompassing, that it erases every other thought in your head and leaves you standing there, soaked and slightly terrified, feeling more alive than you have in years. People describe it as humbling. That is the polite word for it. What it actually is a recalibration. A full system reset. The Atlantic, from Ireland's western edge, doesn't ask for your attention. It takes it, completely, immediately, without negotiation. And something in you, something that had been compressed by schedules and screens, and the relentless low-level anxiety of modern life, releases. This is the first thing the Irish landscape does to you. And it doesn't stop there. The geography of Ireland is a study in contradictions that somehow resolve into coherence. The center of the island is gentle. Wide, flat, and softly beautiful. The Irish Midlands spreading out in a patchwork of farmland and slow rivers, and the vast, dark expanse of the raised bogs. These bogs are among the most ecologically significant and visually surreal landscapes in Europe. They are essentially time capsules, layers of compressed peat moss accumulating over 10,000 years since the last ice age, holding inside them a preserved record of everything that lived and died here. Ancient tree trunks, Bronze Age butter deposits, extraordinarily preserved human remains still wearing their leather shoes. To walk across a bog is to walk across 10 millennia. The ground gives slightly under your weight. The surface is a mosaic of deep rust and gold, and the particular dark green of sphagnum moss. The smell, peat, water, something older than either, is completely unlike anything else on Earth. right light, with the sky reflected in the bog pools, it has an alien, otherworldly beauty that no photograph has ever fully rendered. The Irish have been harvesting this landscape for centuries, cutting turf, blocks of dried peat, for fuel. Walk into a home in rural Connacht on a winter evening, and the smell that meets you is turf smoke from the hearth. Sweet, ancient, irreducible. It is one of those sensory signatures so specific to a place that it works, for Irish people, as a direct line to memory and emotion, regardless of where in the world they encounter it. Is there a smell that instantly transports you home, no matter where you are? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to know what home smells like to you. Moving west, the landscape sheds its gentleness entirely. Connemara is not easy country. It is a wilderness of bog and mountain and lake, Lough, that meets the Atlantic on its own terms. The mountains here, the 12 Bens and the Momturks, are not imposing in the way of the Alps or the Rockies. They are not enormous, but they have a quality of presence, of weight, that larger ranges sometimes lack. They have been worn by weather for so long that they seem less like geological formations and more like living things, patient and ancient, and utterly indifferent to the people who walk across them. The light in Connemara is the thing painters have been trying to capture since the 19th century. On a clear day, it is luminous. The Atlantic brightness bouncing off water and quartz and wet stone, creating a kind of hyper-clarity, a sharpness of vision, where objects at distance seem impossibly close, and colors exceed themselves. On a gray day, with cloud moving fast across the mountains and shadow racing across the bogland, it becomes something more dramatic, a chiaroscuro landscape, all contrast and movement. Then there is the coastline. The cliffs of Moher in County Clare rise 214 meters straight from the sea. Standing at the edge, properly at the edge, not at the safety barrier, but at the actual lip of the cliff, where the grass ends and the air begins, and below you is nothing but vertical rock and the white chaos of Atlantic swells, produces a specific physical sensation that is somewhere between exhilaration and existential vertigo. Most visitors photograph them. A smaller number stand and simply look. The ones who stand and look come away changed in some small but real way. Something about the sheer, uncompromising scale of them. The audacity of the land simply ending, dropping away, offering the Atlantic a wall and nothing else, disrupts the ordinary scale of things. Your problems become correctly sized, briefly. Further south, the Ring of Kerry and the Dingle Peninsula unroll in a succession of landscapes that seem almost aggressively beautiful, as if the country is showing off. Mountains drop to sea in a single movement. Offshore islands sit in silver water like punctuation marks at the edge of the known world. The Skelligs, two pyramidal rocks jutting from the ocean 12 kilometers off the Kerry coast, carry on their upper slopes the ruins of an early Christian monastery, built by monks who chose the most remote, inhospitable place they could find specifically because they wanted nothing between themselves and God. standing on the mainland, looking at them in the late afternoon light, when the sea is slate and the rocks are gold, it is very easy to understand why they made that choice. Share this video with someone who needs to see Ireland before they die. Genuinely, some places deserve a bigger audience. The stone walls deserve their own meditation. They appear everywhere in the West, thousands upon thousands of kilometers of dry stone walls, built without mortar, surviving centuries of Atlantic weather by the simple genius of their construction. Each stone placed with weight and angle calculated by eye and hand, each wall the product of days and weeks of labor by people for whom this was not craftsmanship but survival. The fields were too rocky to farm until the rocks were moved. The walls were the byproduct of making the land usable. On the Aran Islands, where the bedrock is limestone and the soil, such as it is, was created by generations of farmers mixing sand and seaweed into the rock fissures, the walls form a pattern so intricate that from above the islands look like enormous pieces of cracked gray ceramic. Every wall represents a calculation that this land, however reluctant, could be made to yield something. That the effort was worth it. It almost always was not, by any modern economic accounting. They did it anyway. This is the thing about the Irish relationship with their landscape that no tourist photograph captures. It is not passive appreciation. It is earned intimacy. Every hill walked, every field farmed, every stone stacked is a negotiation between people and land that has been going on for 6,000 years and is still in the farms and the fishing boats and the hill walking boots at the back door, continuing today. The hiking trails that now crisscross the country, the Wild Atlantic Way, the Kerry Way, the Wicklow Way, follow routes that were once the only roads between isolated communities. Walking them, you are literally retracing the steps of people who had no other option. The same paths, the same views, the same wind. There is a word the Irish use for this kind of connection across time: dinscientious. The lore of place, the deep knowledge of a landscape, not just its geography but its stories, its names, the events that happened in specific fields and on specific hills and at specific bends in a river. Every named place in Ireland carries a story inside it. The landscape is not backdrop, it is text, and once you start reading it, you cannot stop. If you could stand anywhere in the world right now just to feel something real, where would it be? Tell me below. Let's build a list together. There is a fact about Ireland's economic history, so stark, so almost incomprehensible in its extremity, that it reframes everything that comes after it. In 1845, the island of Ireland had a population of approximately 8 million people. By 1900, 55 years later, it had 4 million. The other 4 million were dead or gone, killed by starvation and the diseases that follow it, or carried away by emigration ships to America, to England, to anywhere that was not here. The Great Famine, An Gorda Mór, the Great Hunger, It was not simply a natural disaster, though the potato blight that triggered it was biological. It was a catastrophe made exponentially worse by political decisions, by the continuation of food and exports from a starving country, by the ideological preference for market mechanisms over emergency intervention, by a colonial administration that regarded Irish suffering with detachment, and in some quarters with something colder than detachment. 1 million people died, 1 million more left in the years immediately following. And the emigration, once it began, did not stop. It became the defining feature of Irish demography for the next 150 years. Generation after generation, the young and able-bodied left because there was not enough here to hold them. This is not ancient history. It is the living context for everything that came after. For the Irish relationship with land, which was not simply agricultural preference but survival imperative. For the Irish relationship with authority, watchful, skeptical, earned rather than assumed. For the Irish relationship with immigration, which is not discussed as tragedy, but as reality, because every Irish family has its version of the story. Its American cousin, its London uncle, its Australian branch that got one generation removed, and then another, and is now third generation Irish-Australian, and still comes back in the summers. Does your family carry an immigration story, Irish or otherwise? A great-grandparent who left somewhere for somewhere else? Tell me in the comments. I think about these stories a lot. For most of the 20th century, Ireland remained a small, conservative, largely agricultural economy on the western edge of Europe. The political independence achieved in 1922 did not immediately translate into economic independence. The country was poor in material terms, rich in culture, rich in community, rich in the intangible things, but genuinely poor in infrastructure, in industry, in opportunity. The safety valve still was emigration. The 1950s saw another wave. The 1980s, marked by high unemployment and crippling national debt, saw another. Young people left because the economy could not absorb them. Families watched their children depart with a resignation born of long practice and a grief that never quite normalized, despite the familiarity. Then something shifted. In the 1990s, Ireland made a series of decisions, some deliberate, some fortuitous. Some were simply the compound interest of previous investments coming due, that transformed the country with a speed that genuinely shocked the people living through it. Low corporate tax rates, significant investment in education, producing a young, English-speaking, high-skilled workforce at precisely the moment the global technology industry needed exactly that. European Union structural funds flowing into infrastructure. And a cultural openness, a hunger perhaps born of centuries of deprivation, that made Ireland unusually willing to embrace the new, to welcome investment, to position itself as a bridge between the American business world and the European market. The result was the Celtic Tiger. Between roughly 1995 and 2007, The Irish economy grew at rates that no developed economy had previously sustained. GDP doubled, then doubled again. Property prices exploded. Construction cranes became the unofficial national bird. A country that had been exporting for generations suddenly found itself importing them. Irish immigrants returned and were joined by workers from across Europe and beyond, drawn by opportunity in a place that had, within living memory, been defined by its absence. The transformation was disorienting in its speed. An elderly woman in a Galway village who had grown up in a house without electricity watched, within her single lifetime, her grandchildren take jobs at multinational technology companies whose annual revenues exceeded the entire GDP of the Ireland she was born into. What do you do with that? How do you locate yourself in a story that accelerates that fast? The crash, when it came in 2008, was correspondingly brutal. The same openness that had powered the boom, the willingness to take on risk, to build fast, to trust that growth was permanent, had also created dangerous overexposure to a property market that had detached from any rational relationship with actual value. When the global financial crisis hit, Ireland's banks were catastrophically exposed. The government's decision to guarantee the banking system transferred private debt onto the public balance sheet on a scale that remains, per capita, one of the largest bank bailouts in history. The austerity years that followed were severe. Public services cut, emigration rising again, a new generation educated at the country's expense, leaving for London and Sydney and New York and Toronto because the opportunities had evaporated overnight. There was grief in it and anger and a particular Irish form of dark mordant humor that kicks in precisely when things are worst and functions as both coping mechanism and survival tool. If this economy, the rise and crash and rebuild, sounds familiar from your own country's history, tell me in the comments. Economic cycles hit small countries hardest, and I want to hear your story. But Ireland rebuilt. This is the part that gets underreported, partly because recovery is less dramatic than collapse, and partly because the Irish themselves tend toward understatement about their own resilience. By the mid-2010s, the economy was growing again. By 2020, Ireland had the fastest growing economy in Europe. Dublin had become a genuine global city, the European home of Google, Apple, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pfizer, and dozens of other companies whose products are used by billions of people who couldn't locate the country on a map without prompting. Cork has a pharmaceutical sector of international significance. Galway has a medical technology industry that punches far above its weight. The country that once watched its people leave to build other nations' economies was now building its own, with enough momentum to attract talent back across the Atlantic. The Irish economy today is a paradox that its own people find genuinely strange to inhabit. One of the wealthiest countries in Europe by per capita income, yet with a housing crisis of acute severity. A country that attracts global capital at extraordinary rates, yet struggles to translate that wealth into affordable living for the young people who drive it. A country whose corporate tax model has made it a magnet for multinational headquarters and simultaneously a persistent source of friction with European partners who view the arrangement with some ambivalence. Nowhere is the contradiction sharper than in Dublin, where software engineers earning six-figure salaries in glass towers overlooking the Liffey commute home to rental accommodations that consume half their income, in a city whose population grew faster than its housing stock could follow. The Celtic Tiger built the economy. It did not entirely solve the country. But this is what makes Ireland's economic story genuinely instructive. It is not a simple narrative of rags to riches. It is a story of a people who survived the worst history could offer, rebuilt with extraordinary resourcefulness, made serious mistakes at speed, paid for them at scale, and came back. Not unchanged, not without loss, but intact in the thing that was always most important. The community, the culture, the stubborn, unkillable sense of who they are. No recession has ever touched that. If you're finding this series valuable, subscribe now so you don't miss the next chapter, and share it with one person who loves travel or history. That one share makes a bigger difference than you think. Irish food has an image problem that it does not entirely deserve. Ask someone who has never been to Ireland to describe the cuisine, and they will reach, almost without exception, for the same handful of words: potatoes, stew, brown bread, Guinness. And they are not wrong exactly. Those things exist. Those things are real and genuinely good. But they are to Irish food what Big Ben is to London: true, recognizable, and deeply insufficient as a description of the whole. What Irish food actually is at its best is something that most cuisines in the world are currently spending enormous effort trying to become: hyperlocal, ingredient-led, seasonal by necessity, and built around a relationship with land and sea so direct and uncomplicated that the philosophy fashionable in high-end restaurants, farm to table, nose to tail, terroir, is simply how people here have always cooked, not because it is trendy, but because it is practical. The ingredients Ireland produces are, quietly, extraordinary. The grass that grows from Atlantic-fed soil, kept perpetually lush by rain that the rest of Europe would consider excessive, produces dairy products of a richness and complexity that chefs across the world seek out by name. Irish butter. And if you have only ever had standard supermarket butter, the first time you eat the real thing, properly salted, on warm soda bread fresh from an oven, is a genuinely revelatory experience. The fat content, the color, the depth of flavor, these are not marketing claims. They are the direct result of cows eating that specific grass in that specific rain, in that specific light. The seafood is by any standard world-class. Let's start at the beginning of the day, because in Ireland the beginning of the day is taken seriously. The full Irish breakfast. The full Irish is a cultural institution that transcends mere nutrition. A proper one is assembled with the seriousness of purpose that other cultures bring to elaborate tasting menus. Rashers, thick-cut back bacon, nothing like American streaky bacon, more substantial, more deeply flavored. Sausages, pork, properly seasoned, with a skin that resists the knife slightly before giving. Eggs, fried in the bacon fat, edges crisping in the way that only happens in a pan that knows what it is doing. Black pudding and white pudding, the former made with oats and blood, the latter without, both with a spiced depth that sounds challenging to the uninitiated and is immediately, completely correct to anyone who grew up eating them. Grilled tomatoes, mushrooms, baked beans if you want them, though purists have opinions. Brown sauce or ketchup on the side, a debate conducted at volume across generations. And underneath it all, or alongside it, the bread. Soda bread deserves its own paragraph. It is made with 4 ingredients: flour, buttermilk, baking soda, salt, requires no yeast, no proving time, and can go from bowl to oven in under 10 minutes. The result is a dense, slightly tangy, deeply satisfying loaf with a crust that cracks when you press it, and a crumb that holds butter without collapsing under it. In a farmhouse kitchen on a cold morning, the smell of soda bread baking is one of those sensory experiences that bypass analysis entirely and go straight to something older and more fundamental. Do you have a bread from your culture that smells like home? Tell me what it is in the comments. Food memories might be the most universal thing there is. The potato inevitably must be addressed properly. It arrived in Ireland from the Americas in the 16th century and became, within 200 years, the nutritional foundation of an entire population. Not as a side dish, as the primary food source for the rural poor, a caloric density that could sustain a family through a winter on a tiny plot of land. At its peak, the Irish poor were consuming between 4 and 10 pounds of potatoes per person per day. Then in 1845, the blight came, and in the devastating logic of monoculture dependence, a single crop failure became a civilizational catastrophe. The potato's history in Ireland is therefore not a simple story of culinary preference. It is a story about poverty and survival, and the terrible fragility of a food system built on a single variety of a single crop. The Irish relationship with the potato today carries all of that history, lightly, mostly, because life moves forward and food is primarily pleasure. But it is there, in the way it is never quite taken for granted. Colcannon, potatoes mashed with kale or cabbage and butter and cream, is comfort food of the highest order, associated with Halloween and autumn and the particular warmth of a kitchen when the nights are drawing in. Champ, potatoes with spring onions and butter, served with a well in the center for the butter to pool, has a texture and a lightness that surprises people who expect it to be heavy. Boxty, a potato pancake from the North and Midlands, made with both raw grated potato and mashed potato, has a texture and a lightness that surprises people who expect it to be heavy. These are not museum recipes. They are still made in Irish homes by Irish grandmothers and by young people who learned from them every week. The sea provides abundantly, and the Irish coastal kitchen knows exactly what to do with it. Oysters from Galway Bay are harvested from waters so cold and clean that they require nothing. No dressing, no accompaniment, no culinary intervention of any kind. You eat them straight from the shell, tasting the ocean directly, and the experience is as close to eating a place as food gets. The Galway International Oyster and Seafood Festival, held every September, is one of the most atmospheric food events in Europe. Part celebration, part competition, entirely a justification for standing outside in an Irish September wind, eating shellfish and drinking stout and deciding this is, improbably, exactly right. Smoked salmon, specifically the wild or organically farmed Atlantic salmon, smoked over oak in small traditional smokehouses dotted along the West Coast, is another product whose quality is simply not replicable elsewhere. The flesh is dense and silky, the smoke flavor present but not overwhelming. The color a deep orange red that tells you immediately this is not the pale farmed product in supermarket packaging. Mussels, cockles, crab, lobster, mackerel, the day's catch prepared the same day, in kitchens that understand the primary rule of coastal cooking. When the ingredient is this good, restraint is the highest form of skill. If you've ever eaten something so fresh it made you understand why people live in difficult, remote places, tell me what it was and where in the comments. The contemporary Irish food scene deserves recognition that it is only recently beginning to receive. A generation of Irish chefs, trained in the great kitchens of Europe, but rooted in the specific landscape and produce of their home country, have built restaurants and food cultures that are genuinely world-class. The West Coast has a concentration of exceptional restaurants relative to its population that surprises visitors expecting culinary isolation. Farmers' markets in Cork, Galway, and Dublin showcase artisanal cheeses, some of the finest in Europe, produced on small farms with the same attention to place and process that defines great French fromage. The craft beer and craft spirits industry has exploded, producing Irish whiskies and gins with profiles that reflect the botanicals and water of specific Irish landscapes. But for all of this, and it is real, and it matters, and it deserves the attention it is getting, the truest expression of Irish food culture remains exactly where it has always been. The kitchen table, Sunday afternoon. A roast that has been in the oven since morning, filling the house with a smell that reaches you before you open the front door. The family gathered, some of them having driven hours to be there, some of them from the house next door. The kettle already on, the conversation already running. Every culture has its version of this. The Irish version has a specific quality of unhurried completeness. A sense that this meal, this afternoon, this gathering is not scheduled around something else. It is the thing. The whole point of the day, perhaps the week, is to arrive at this table, in this company, and eat together. Everything else in Ireland is somehow preparation for this. If you've never tried Irish food beyond a pub chain's shepherd's pie, you owe it to yourself to go to the real thing. And if you've had the real thing, what dish broke you open? Tell me below. If you're not subscribed yet, now is the moment. Ireland is not a perfect country. Housing costs are brutal. Rural communities are quietly hollowing out. Young people leave and not enough of them come back. The old question, how do you keep a culture alive when the world keeps pulling its people away, has no clean answer, and the Irish know it. But here is what nobody leaves behind when they go. The feeling of being known, of walking into a room and belonging to it before you've said a word. Of a landscape that doesn't just surround you, but somehow recognizes you. Of a culture so particular, so deeply itself, that it travels with people across oceans and generations, and still arrives intact on the other side. Ireland is small. It is windswept and complicated, and occasionally exasperating, and frequently, magnificently, heartbreakingly beautiful. And people stay or spend their whole lives trying to get back. Because some places don't just give you somewhere to live. They give you something to be. If this journey through Ireland moved something in you, subscribe so you never miss where we go next. And drop a comment telling us, where in the world do you want us to take you? We read every single one.